Are you seriously going to eat, you fat blibbity blabbity blob?
I mean, some of you might be like,
continual.
why would I want to start this?
Sensitive. She's sensitive.
You are listening to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing podcast, where we share stories that are, you guessed it, unscripted.
That's the thing, this journey doesn't stop.
It doesn't really
right?
end. We have a general sense of the topic each episode, but really the whole point is just to show up and be authentic and let our inner child speak its truth.
And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Sabatsky, you do.
So I'm so excited that you are here, and it is my hope that you hear yourself somewhere in the story so that way you can feel seen and heard as well. So let's start talking. Hey there. Before we get rocking and rolling with today's episode, I wanted to remind all of you about the 4-week program that Christy Bemis and I are kicking off in June called Roots and Wings. And it is all about your inner child healing, how that is playing a role in your adult life. We talked about that on last week's episode, so feel free to go back and watch that episode if you haven't already, and reach out to Christy or I if you have questions on it. But I am so excited to work with her because she is just a fabulous therapist, couples counselor, sex educator, all of the things. And we just bring a really cool dynamic, and I get to be my little inner child oracle and bring all those downloads that I just get from your inner child. We just kind of have this little communication line. So that is happening. I will put the link in here below. And also a huge shout out and thank you to the Believe crew who is sponsoring today's episode and will be a sponsor moving forward for the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing podcast. I have been working with Jamie and Kevin. They also did an episode, which I will link and have at the end of the YouTube. You'll see that pop up. But for those of you that are listening, I will link that episode as well so you can get to know them a little bit more. But with the Believe crew, they're taking what Jamie and Kevin were doing and exploding it because it's worked so well, where Jamie is the one who's seen this big, massive vision for your career and your purpose. And then Kevin was in there helping heal the childhood wounds, the stored trauma, the emotions, the limiting beliefs, and all of those things that were coming up as you're trying to step into that big vision and dream. Because what I recognized is that I have those dreams. I have those big visions. It's not that I'm trying to find the purpose. I know what it is. It's what are the blocks that are preventing me from doing that. And so he comes in, helps do that cleanup so that I can continue to rise into that vibration so I can feel safe in that frequency. Because how many of us, we have those big dreams and goals, but for whatever reason, we still feel stuck because we don't feel energetically safe in that energy, or we don't know how to either get there or how to stay there, right? You get there for a moment and then self-doubt. And then you get there for a moment and then you self-sabotage. And then you get there. We've all been on that cycle and that pattern. And that's where they're coming together and be like, no more. We are doing this tag team, but they are expanding their whole little catalog of healers who have all these different modalities that can approach things that you got going on a deeper level. So that way, when you are working with Jamie, you can actually make some headway and you're not constantly coming up on these limiting beliefs and these ceilings that we have. And I have been there. I don't know how I would be moving along if I hadn't done the healing work in addition to working with her. And so I kind of see her as your primary doctor. And then you have all of these other specialties that help support your physical body. You might go to physical therapy. You might go to a radiologist, a cardiologist, whatever. That's kind of what they're doing. So I think of Jamie as your primary care doctor, but then you might go to someone who does Akashic Records. You might go to someone who does energy healing. You might go to someone who does theta healing, whatever, just different modalities that are here to support your emotional and your energetic body. So that way you can achieve your career goals, your life goals, your purpose, whether it's optimal health or it's optimal living fully, because you are now fully in your purpose. It's just such a cool model that they are establishing. And I'm super excited to be a part of that, to have witnessed it, to be able to work with some of these people and to bring them all to you. Because I've worked with coaches before, but it's always like you kind of need a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It's never just like one coach has got it all for you. And I've noticed that I've brought in different coaches at different times needing different things. Whereas now it's like I can kind of go to Believe Crew and find everything I need within that little co-op, if you will. So I will put the link for Believe Crew on here to check them out, to connect with them. And I'm so grateful for how much they have helped me. So thank you, Believe Crew. And again, don't forget to sign up for Roots and Wings. We are starting in June. And on to the episode. And this one is a doozy. Welcome to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing podcast. I would like to start off by saying that I'm really excited about today's episode, but that is not necessarily true. I've actually been working through the feels and the emotions and some really nervous, vulnerable energy. Because as you can see, what I'm about to share is been incredibly personal, incredibly healing, but also incredibly vulnerable because it is so close and it is something that, being so new, that there's all the fears of projections and all this kind of stuff that my ego has been like, are you seriously going to share all of this? And here I am with the permission of someone else that's a part of this story, because it isn't just my story. And I'm so appreciative that I was given permission to share aspects of this story because it's so powerful. And that's really the whole point of this podcast, is to share stories so that hopefully those of you that are listening can hear yourself somewhere in there, that there's something in there for you, and that maybe you feel that lump in your throat, that pit in your stomach, or the goosebumps, because that is your inner child saying, hey, did you hear what she just said? That's for you. Maybe you should go explore that. Think about that. Sit with that, because that is your inner child trying to get your attention. And it was so interesting that I have a little dish of my stones and things in front of me, and I always just grab one. If you've ever noticed, sometimes I have that in my hand. I learned that from Zoe when we were at our inner child healing retreat. And I was like, oh, and for some reason it just helps calm me, ground me. I don't know. But anyway, I grab a stone and then I'm like, oh, I wonder what my intuition helped me grab today. And interestingly enough, I grabbed Rainbow Moonstone, and right when I saw what it symbolizes, because I never remember, let's be honest. I get them in the moment when I'm at the shop, I'm like, oh, that resonates, and then I'd completely forget. But this one, first thing, was divine feminine energy, which is a huge resonating part of today's episode, and how this story has allowed me to step into that more. So I'll be sharing some of that. It also stands for new beginnings and transformation, and holy hell, I have been on like the fast track of that the last 3 months. My head is still spinning, and I know like I'm not officially off this roller coaster ride, but whoo, I'm learning to embrace it. I buckled up. Here we go. Enhanced intuition and psychic abilities, which has also felt like has kind of come online more throughout this journey. The more that I trust myself, the more I trust the downloads that I get, the more I deliver those, and to see the results in the people that I'm giving them to, it's like, whoa. Emotional healing, which is absolutely the theme of today's episode. And it's interesting because it says it has calming energy believed to soothe emotional instability, which is like, let me just rub this all over me right now, because I'm needing some of that protection, spiritual growth, but also a balance of masculine and feminine energy, and being able to harmonize both those polarities, which is also something that I'm trying to do more, because for a lot of us women, we have, especially I've been living on my own for over, almost 2.5 years. I've kind of had to be more in my masculine energy and taking charge. And so part of these last 3 months has been helping me shift back into what that feels like to be in my feminine energy. And as lovely as that sounds, it can be incredibly uncomfortable. So for those of you, if you know, you know. But also, really what this episode is meant to be about was looking at your life, if you were to think about it as a play. And again, I've talked many times on this podcast. If you're a regular listener, thank you. If you are new, welcome. You really you joined in on a doozy of an episode. Is you should be the main character of your play. You should be writing the script, but oftentimes we are not. We are either sitting out in the stands watching this play, watching our life go by. I mean, like, what the hell are you doing? Why did you do that? Why did you say that? Why did you let them do this? Or you're in the back stage, not even really a part of it. And you're just on autopilot and all of these things are just happening. Next thing you know, 20 years has gone by, or you're 70 years and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have that much time left. And here I am. And what have I done? What have I not done? What are the things? And I've had those conversations. I had a beautiful conversation with my dear friend Zoe earlier this week, and a conversation that she had with her dad. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, thank goodness they're having this conversation now. But it broke my heart to think that this man is in his 70s and had lived with all of this regret. But thank goodness he finally opened up and finally expressed some of these emotions and had this beautiful healing moment with his daughter. And now is kind of getting on stage, even though it might be in the last act. And that's part of the message on this podcast, is trying to help wake people up. So that way you are either saying, cut, we need an intermission here because I am writing this script from here on out. And part of what I wanted to talk about today was the characters, the roles, the people that God's brought into my life. Because if this script was given to me by God and the universe and saying, like, okay, Tami, here's how this is going to go, and these people are going to come into your life at this point and this point and this point because you need to learn this lesson, you need to heal this wound. Oh, it helps you understand things more and why people come in and out of your lives. And I found this little quote earlier, and I just felt it was so fitting for this episode. And it says, I asked for healing, and God gave me memories I buried so I could finally tend to the wounds. I asked to grow spiritually, and God gave me silence so I could hear the whisper beneath the noise. Whew. I asked to feel worthy, and God placed me in situations where I felt unseen so I could remember my value isn't up for debate. I asked for peace, and God let something fall apart so I could rebuild on truth instead of fear. And I asked for clarity, and God let confusion sit beside me until I was brave enough to listen within. I asked to feel loved, and God showed me the parts of myself I've rejected so I could love me first. And I was like, damn, like, that has been the last several years of my life, especially going through the realization that I could no longer stay in my marriage, to then moving out almost 2.5 years ago and being on my own and having certain people come into my life during that time and learning some big, big worthiness wound lessons there, learning how to set boundaries. But the biggest lesson within that time was not emotionally abandoning myself, intuitively abandoning myself, because I had learned the lesson years before not to physically abandon myself when it came to my goals, my nutrition, my workouts, things like that. But over the last 2.5 years, certain characters came into my life where my intuition was screaming at me, but because my ego wanted and needed to feel seen, I completely abandoned what I knew, what I felt. And so that was a huge part of my healing journey over the last 2.5 years. And I knew that I needed to heal this stuff because I don't want to be bringing this into another relationship down the road whenever God puts someone else in my life. And I was not going to be out there on dating apps and all of those things. I'm like, I trust that whenever God thinks that I'm ready, another character person will come into my life. It's always going to be some sort of lesson, blessing. Usually they're all the same if you really learn to think of them that way. And I knew that I was going to reach a certain part in my healing where I could only go so far on my own. I could learn to feel emotionally regulated within myself by myself. I now know what my energy feels like. And I will tell you, someone that had never, ever lived alone until I moved into this apartment 2.5 years ago, ever, It was the most incredible, odd feeling at first to be like, oh, this is just mine. I'm not taking on everyone else's energy and everyone else's emotions, even when my kids are here. When they're not here, I was like, I have to clear this space because I can feel their energy here, which I love them and I love their energy, but I don't need to be taking on anyone's stuff anymore. And so it gave me clarity after literally a lifetime of taking on everyone else's stuff to just know what it's like to be in mine. And so I get to this certain point and I feel like God and his little team up there are like, okay, she's ready. She's ready. Let's bring in the next the next character here. Enter this person who I know is watching, and thank you for being so supportive and allowing me to share our story. And I don't even know where to start because it has been the craziest roller coaster ride. And again, nothing that I was out searching for, looking for. Apparently, God was like, girl, you're ready. We need to move on. Next scene, you've done that enough. It's time to go a little bit deeper in these wounds because I have healed us to a certain extent what I could on my own. But as we know, people come into your life, they are here to teach us. They are here to show us, to be our mirror, to be our teachers. And this person absolutely showed me things that I still very much still needed to heal and things that I didn't even see. And what was really great about it was that this person was the perfect person to do that because of the healing work they had done, how grounded they were in their own energy, and that when my ego takes over, this person wasn't like, yo, this bitch is crazy, peace out. Was actually like leaning in and wanting to understand me more and to learn me more and to understand what my triggers are, to understand what my wounds were, to be able to kind of help in that moment, even if it was just to be there as a grounding, safe energy. And for someone who has spent her lifetime trying to feel safe, energetically safe, like, whoa, you can't put a value on that or to even experience it. And when I talked about the episode, Why We Sabotage a Good Thing, this is what I was referring to is like, I didn't know how to receive lessons out of love. Like, what are you doing? What is this? And I felt like I was going to ruin it. I was going to sabotage it somehow. And my ego absolutely tried to do that through many moments of people pleasing where it was much easier for me to want to think about everybody else, not even being able to see that maybe I was hurting this other person by doing that, but also abandoning myself because it's not what I wanted to do in the moment. It was what I thought everyone else needed in that moment. So they didn't feel uncomfortable. Meanwhile, I was over here causing damage. I'm like, what are you doing? Stop. So pretty soon I was like, you know what? No, I want to hold hands. And if it makes them uncomfortable, that's a them thing. Or maybe that's showing them what they actually want. And now I'm a mirror for them. And I was like, okay, I have to start allowing myself, giving myself permission to be happy, giving myself permission to express that, to not hide it, to be unapologetic about it. And so that was kind of the first wave of all of this. And then, you kind of get settled in and you get to feel a little bit more comfortable. And then you can't hide parts of yourself. And I think when these conversations started was because this person started watching the podcast. And actually, I'll back up. When we first got to meet each other and asked what I did, and I was like, oh boy. Me, again, projecting, he's going to think I'm a weirdo because I do inner child work. And they're like, what the hell is that? And that's actually what he said. I was like, what is that? I had no idea what inner child work was. But I could tell we had some similar interests and backgrounds and working with people and coaching people and wanting to bring out the best in people. We just had very different approaches on how we did that. And so I was like, oh, I don't know if this we're going to jive, if this is going to work, because I kind of do this inner child stuff where it's a lot more like understanding and compassionate versus like, no excuses, give me 100% drill sergeant-y, which I think there's very much a time and place for that. And honestly, sometimes that is what people need because it shows them that someone actually gives a shit about them, someone actually sees their potential, and someone isn't going to let them off the hook. And that sometimes is exactly what that inner child needs, right? And I've seen that with other coaches and stuff that I have talked to in the past. Anyway, so I'm already thinking like, oh boy, already like, this lady's crazy. But I'm like, no, I'm going to keep talking about it. So sent him an episode and actually watched it and then kept watching them and like, okay. And then he brought up something very interesting to me because he could see podcast Tami, confident podcast Tami. I can talk and I'm animated and I don't hold back and I'm expressive and all of these things. But there were certain moments where I would feel triggered in a one-on-one situation and completely shut down, couldn't speak. He's like, what is that? So I'm in a super vulnerable place where not everybody gets to see that, Tami. You get to see podcast Tami. And not that I hide necessarily on social media. I'm very open about the thoughts that go through my head and the setbacks that I have. But for someone to see it in real time, that was very different for me. And that was very vulnerable for me and still is, to not be able to speak in a moment, to literally feel yourself shut down, for ego to take you on a freaking trip in front of somebody. And I mentioned on last week's episode with Christy of when I flinched, when this person was actually trying to tell me something very loving, but just said it in a serious tone. And I flinched and he saw it. And when at first it was really funny because it was like, whoa, like what the hell was that? What just happened? And then I just cried because I was like, fuck, this. That's my baseline. That's where my nervous system is calibrated, is to brace myself for impact, to be hurt by words, to be hurt by energy. And projecting all of this stuff onto this person when that is not at all what this person deserved and was just so grounding and understanding and just the stable, safe energy to be able to witness me in that moment and not getting scared, not running away, and actually leaning in and saying, I want to understand that. I want to know that more. And what the other big, like, whoa moment starting off was learning about this person's childhood and just the unconditional love this person had from his parents. Beautiful, beautiful relationships with his parents. And again, I have very loving parents, don't get me wrong, but they have their wounds, they have their blocks. Most parents do. And it's very hard for a lot of us to be able to work through that, to be able to show love in the way that we truly want or in the way that our kids need. Just because I might give love this way doesn't mean Aria and Arlo receive it that way. But I was just witnessing like, whoa, like this is how it should be. And it broke my heart for all of these kids, all of these people's inner child who never had that. Who never had that safe base of just unconditional love. But it was so beautiful to know that can happen, that is real, that is out there. I was like, oh, it just like gave me hope and gave me a model for what can happen. You know, and we kind of started this relationship thinking, wow, does this guy have any childhood wounds? Because damn. But then as I learned a little bit more about his story, and I was like, that feels impossible based on this story, because it had a wild story. While there was unconditional love from both parents, while there was this amazing relationship, there was also a separation early on, but the parents were still very loving. The kids were still very supported. So I was like, okay, wow, most people would be totally effed up from something like that, especially when half the siblings got to go with dad, half the siblings stayed with mom. I was like, say what? And, you know, just kind of kept like not brushing over it, but just it didn't seem like it was ever coming up in areas of our relationship. And so I was like, okay, like obviously worked through this. But then as, you know, we've gotten more comfortable, there were certain things that I would do or that he would do, and we would trigger each other. But like Christy said last week, she's like, I hope your relationship triggers you. That's where the golden nuggets of healing is. And that has been absolutely the case here. because every time one of us triggers the other, we have these profound moments of healing and it just brings you closer. And that's why I encourage people to do this work, because if you don't, I would have bolted a long time ago. I'm sure he could have a long time ago and been like, again, peace out. This bitch is crazy. I ain't dealing with her and her ego. But didn't. And because of that, it's just been this really, really profound healing experience. But recently, actually, it was just a couple weeks ago, I was in the shower and I had this massive download about a part of his story. And I was like, ooh, I don't know how he would receive this, but it felt like I have to share this because I'm starting to see how maybe this fear of abandonment is now trickling its way into our relationship. Or maybe it was like needing reassurance. Or I mean, what couple when you're first starting off doesn't have that little bit of fear, right? But I'm like, this isn't about me. This isn't about anyone else. And because he had this story of his childhood and could make sense of everything that had happened and why it had happened. But I know that there's always, and how did your inner child feel about that? I understand that you get it as an adult and you understand why it happened as an adult, but how did your inner child feel in those moments when you are now a 13-year-old boy who's kind of going down the wrong path and your parents decide to move you from Puerto Rico, where you were born and raised, to then move to Florida with your older brother? Like, I don't know, to me as an inner child person, that screams abandonment wound. Even though now we can understand it as an adult, and even shortly thereafter when they were explaining like, hey, we did this for you because you're kind of going down the wrong path and hopefully this can kind of straighten you out and remove you from this environment, 100% you can understand that and even now be grateful for it. But I'm like, what 13-year-old kid isn't going to see that as mom and dad just abandoned me, like didn't want to deal with me? And what was so cool is that this person actually sat with that and then allowed his inner child to tell him, even though he hadn't thought about that since he was 13 years old. And so by me trusting that intuitive hit of like, hey, I kind of wonder if it isn't more of this than it is that, that it is us. But that was what Christy and I were talking about last week, is that we wouldn't have these intense feelings or these repetitive thoughts or actions or behaviors if it wasn't rooted in our childhood. And luckily, I fluent enough in this inner child world to know I'm like, this isn't about me. I am now a mirror. I am now a trigger for something that this man has buried and suppressed for 30, 40 years. But again, thank goodness he has done enough work to be emotionally safe and regulated to be able to sit with that and allow those emotions to come up. Because in doing so, he had a major breakthrough, epiphany, healing moment with his inner child this week. And it started after that initial conversation where I was like, are you sure there's not some abandonment wound stuff there? And the next morning was running and came up to me afterwards like, oh my gosh, I'm running. And all of a sudden I feel that 8-year-old boy running next to me and with me. And it was just the coolest moment because his dad, they were into boxing and they would be working out all the time at the gym and he'd be going for these 45-minute runs when he was a kid. And so that little boy was feeling that energy, but now he was with this grown adult and feeling like, oh my gosh, you acknowledged me. Finally, take me for a run like we used to do. And he had this really profound, cool healing moment. Well, then as things are coming up for us and things are getting triggering, he wanted to shove those feelings back down. And his inner child was like, oh, hell no. Nope, you acknowledge me. You are not putting me back. You are not shoving me back down. You are not suppressing me. And so his inner child spoke up real loud and clear this last week. And it was so cool. And if you don't think that literally everything is connected and that, again, God has that script, that plan all laid out, because what happened and how it happened, you can't make this shit up. You can't make this up. So we were both feeling a little bit triggered early in the day. We had to talk about it and like, sure, we were good, but I think we both were still working through stuff later in that day, just a little distant. And then I go to bed without sending a good night text. So now he's kind of in his head, like, what is going on? And then I'm at the gym every freaking morning. Everybody there knows it. I don't miss unless people know I'm on vacation or they think I'm dead. And that is no joke. I don't miss. I don't. There's been very rare occasions where maybe my alarm was turned off or maybe my phone died, but that is so rare. And if you watch my social media, my stories, you see I'm there 6 days a week. Sundays I take off. I don't miss. Well, Tuesday morning rolls around and he's now expecting me to come say good morning at the gym and I'm not there. I completely sleep through my alarm. My alarm was on. I double checked it that night and I checked it when I woke up 3 hours later, like completely slept through my alarm. Again, that never happens. I'm pretty sure God sent some angel down to put earmuffs over my ears so I didn't hear it. It's like, shh, you need to sleep because there's someone at the gym who needs you to not be there. Because if you're there, they're not going to receive the message that they need to receive. They're not going to have to sit in what they need to sit in order to receive that message. So Tami, you got to sit this one out. Sorry, I know you love to work out. I know you don't like to miss, but you got to take one for the team here. And sure enough, this person, it beautifully orchestrated. And that, you're right, ego starts taking the story of like, okay, where is she? What did I do? Why isn't she here? Oh my gosh, she never misses. Ego just takes it and freaking runs with it and creates all of these stories. Meanwhile, I'm just sleeping through my alarm. Literally nothing. And the reason I didn't send the text the night before was because I fell asleep hanging out with Arlo reading stories. It wasn't that I was like, well, I'm not saying goodnight to you. It wasn't that at all. But ego likes to tell stories. So anyway, he has this moment and all of a sudden it hits him that this was about him abandoning his inner child when he was 13 years old. That when he made that move, had to move from Puerto Rico to Florida, that is when he buried his inner child. And he hadn't brought him out since. And he hadn't fully allowed his inner child to speak, to feel heard, to feel seen. And when things were kind of like, whoa, what's going on with you two? And he wanted to just dismiss it and shove it down and say, I'm done, whatever. His inner child was like, no, we didn't come this far to only come this far. You're going to feel this. And guess what? This isn't about her. This is about you wanting to abandon me again. And I'm not letting it happen. And that is the power of doing this work, is your inner child will fight for you. Just like your body will fight for you, it's all working for you if you can see that. But instead, we want to run from the discomfort. We want to numb the discomfort. We want to hide from the discomfort when really you got to sit in the discomfort. And because he had already done so much work and having gone through a whole other story, a whole other podcast of him finding himself and going through that journey years ago, he was able to sit in that and knowing like, oh, there's something in this for me. There's something in this for me. And that's what it was. And that during that time, from 13 to where he is now, because he had such a loving, unconditional love relationship with his parents, is that they didn't abandon that little boy. Yes, they had to move, but beyond that time, they were still there. They were still supportive. They still loved him and he still felt that kind of nurturing from them. But his mom passed a year ago. And while he still feels very connected to her spiritually, she's not here in the physical. And he realized like, oh, I need to be that for my inner child now. I need to be that loving, encouraging, nurturing presence in my inner child's life now. And it was just like this whoa moment. It was so powerful and it was so beautiful to witness. And luckily, when I finally got to the gym, he's just had this moment, like I said, like in real time, like wanting to bring all these emotions. And I wish Ollie could have recorded that because it was so beautiful and so pure and so raw, but so healing to be able to witness someone reconnect with their inner child like that. And to get it. Like once you get it and it clicks, and you never want to abandon that little person ever again. That's why I'm so freaking passionate about this, is because I won't ever want to abandon little Tam Tam again. And I know some people, you don't quite get it yet because you haven't maybe really felt what he or she has needed you to feel yet. To have that kind of connection where you're like, oh, I get it now. I get it now. And what was really, really powerful from that was him recognizing, like, now that I have integrated all the parts of me, integrated my inner child, I can now show up and be that man who isn't feeling insecure, who isn't feeling worried or afraid about abandonment. Because now, if I don't abandon myself, I don't have to worry about you abandoning me, because that's your inner child's greatest fear. His inner child doesn't give two shits if I abandon him. He's like, I want to make sure you don't. That's where that fear was coming from. Now it won't need that reassurance from me. The inner child was never searching for it from me. He wanted to know, are you going to abandon me when times get tough? Because that's what we do. And that's what I was doing a couple years ago, is I was abandoning myself when emotions got too high. When it gets hard, we want to check out of ourselves, of our own lives. And that's when your inner child is like, no, I need you to sit in this with me, because what child wants to go through big emotions alone? And going back to Arlo's podcast, that was the advice he gave adults. I'm like, what should adults do when kids are having big emotions? He goes, stay with them. Don't leave them. My 6-year-old said that. So there is a 6-year-old in all of you who is saying, don't leave me when emotions are hard. Don't leave me when life gets tough. Don't abandon me. Don't abandon us. Don't abandon your goals, your nutrition goals, your workout, because that's all how you reparent. And all of a sudden you abandon everything. You just let everything go to shit. Who feels abandoned? Your inner child does. It needs you to stay. So when you send your kids off to their room, it's like, deal with it on your own. I don't want to deal with your emotions. That's what we're telling our kids. But that is 100% what we're telling ourselves when we turn to food to numb our emotions, when we turn to substances, or when we start scrolling rather than having to feel. That's exactly what we're doing. We're basically telling your inner child, go to your room. I don't want to deal with you. Well, for some of you, your inner child is not letting that fly anymore. And thank goodness. And I hope that you are in a place where you can sit with that and allow those emotions to come up and to feel that for him or her. And if you're not, and you don't feel safe to do that, hello, that's what I'm here for. And just lucky enough for this person, like, hey, just so happens that I love this work and I'm passionate about this work and specialize in this work. Let me help you with that. Or just providing that safe container. Rather than you need to say anything, is just to be that safe energy, that grounded energy. And then when I'm having my moments, can be that for me. It can be a beautiful exchange, which brings me to another aspect of this whole masculine and feminine energy that I referred to a little bit earlier, in that for many women, we have found ourselves operating in a lot of masculine energy, whether that's just our relationships that are kind of out of whack. I can go into a whole tangent about why men are showing up the way they are, which then forces women to show up the way they are. And it just completely distorts the whole dynamic. And I have absolutely found myself in that, and for reasons that are just because of my circumstances. But what was interesting that came out of this whole epiphany that my partner had was that by integrating his whole self, was that he could show up more in his masculine energy now that he wasn't feeling that vulnerable energy or that fear of abandonment. And I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but what that did for me was allow me to feel safe now in my feminine. And I had said, I have never been more excited to have missed a workout before, which is not the case. Again, if you know me, if I miss a workout, now I'm all in my head and my whole day is ruined because I'm thinking about how am I going to get it in now and all of these things. And it wasn't that at all. I actually found myself not stressed about it all, not even thinking about that. And that's when it hit me, is when I go to the gym in the morning, that is me putting on my armor. That is me operating in my masculine energy. That is me protecting myself, getting strong, right? Getting fierce, and very much in that masculine energy. I've talked on here a million times about my sports bras and crop tops and stuff like that, and how I now know that allows me to be in my feminine energy while I'm still in my masculine at the gym. But in that moment, I just started crying because for the first time, I felt like I could let that guard down. I could set that armor down. And that maybe I don't have to go to the gym every morning to armor up. And there was just this sense of like relief that came over me in that moment. And it was really, really cool. But fast forward to this morning, again, hot off the press, triggered Tami coming at you, is that he had trimmed his beard. And I noticed something was different, but I'm lifting and working out. And so I'm not fully 100% engaged and present. And I had him come over to spot me. And that's when I remember kind of looking like something's up, something's different. But then I'm benching and he's spotting me. So I'm focused on, this 135 pounds not falling on my neck. So, but anyway, comes up and in a kind of a joking manner, just says, "You didn't notice that I trimmed my beard and everyone else did." That's it. That's all I said, which was fact. I hadn't said anything about it. I noticed something different, but I hadn't verbalized that yet. I hadn't said anything yet. He walks away immediately. I curl up. I do my whole classic get small, feel shame, ego that it loves to do. And I wasn't mad at him for saying it. There was a part of me that's like, why are you saying that? Why did you say it that way? Because again, as I mentioned last week with the episode with Christy, is that I'm very hypervigilant to any change in tone, change in energy. I'm always reading between the lines. I can't really trust what people say. And so I was in my head about that, but I knew immediately this was not about the comment that he made. And then I just got mad. I got mad at not necessarily me, maybe my ego, like, why is this still a thing? Why are you still feeling like you're not good enough, that you can't do anything right, that, oh, you screwed that up again. Way to fuck it up, Tami. Like, can't you do anything right? Like, I was just like, where is this coming from? And I just got mad. Like, come on. Like, I've done so much freaking work. I've done so much healing. Why is this still a thing? And because he knows when I get triggered, can read my energy like a book, which is a blessing and a curse because you can't hide shit, which is good though, because it forces ego to, no, you don't get to run and hide. Stay in this. Deal with this now. Work on this now. Find your voice now. And that has been really hard, but it has been very healing as well. Sometimes I might have to take that moment, but then find my voice to be able to communicate in the moment. Because I felt safe doing that after the fact, processing alone, and then coming back and remedying, but not letting me do that, which is good. I need that. So it's like I freaking need this. I hate it, but I love it. Anyway, so we address it. We're aware of why it triggered me, all the things. And then sitting in the steam room, and going back to his epiphany earlier, is that he has a very close connection with God. And every morning before going to the gym, he has a conversation with God and prays and all of these things. And it's this beautiful practice that he has. And so Tuesday morning, when he's feeling all these feels from the night before and not knowing where all these emotions are coming from that he's wanting to suppress, but his inner child isn't letting him, he prays to God and is like, I think I need you to heal my heart. Like, I don't know where these emotions are coming from. I don't want to feel these. I haven't felt these in so many years. Like, I think I need you to heal my heart. And just asking for help from God. Like, hey, I would do anything for my son. If I'm the son of God, you would do anything for me. Help me heal my heart. And that's just as quickly as he asked God for help, all of those things then transpired in the gym. So much so that God said, Tami, you don't get to come to the gym today. He asked for help. We need to help him. You're part of this, but you helping is you not being there, is you not intervening. And I was like, okay. And that's why I felt so calm about missing my workout. Because once I understood the assignment, I was like, oh, okay, there was a bigger purpose here. I get it. Awesome. Cool. So just another important reminder to ask. to ask for help, to ask for guidance, to pray. Help me with this. If it's something that's just on your mind, if it's something that you're struggling with, ask for help. Ask and you shall receive. We forget to ask because we're so used to, again, go in your room, deal with it yourself. And even if you did have to go to your room and by yourself, you still have God to ask for help. You're not actually alone, but how many times have we felt alone? And I've had to do that over the last 2.5 years of being here by myself. And that's why I have such a strong connection now, because I haven't had that person to rely on, to ask. I have an amazing, amazing support group of friends that I could call in those moments. This is full circle moment, but I don't always want to be a burden. And I know it's not that always. Sometimes it is, but other times it's because I know I need to sit in it myself. And I know that's like me and God got to work this out. And so that isolation is so important. And when you can embrace that and know that that is for you and that is for your healing, whoa, you get so many answers. You get so many downloads. And so I was like, I'm going to take one from his book. So I'm sitting in the steam room and I said, I closed my eyes. I'm like, if I am supposed to know the origin of why I still don't feel good enough, that I can't do anything right, that I'm going to disappoint people, that I'm going to be a burden, if I'm supposed to know the origin of this, tell me. If I don't need to know, then let me release this. And I was just clear and direct, sweating profusely, steam room just drenched. And then first thought came through. And this is, again, where I just have to go with this. I may end up having a conversation with my parents about this. But what came through so clearly for me was that, and again, they have never made me feel this way. But just knowing the circumstances is that I was the fourth baby within 5 years. My mom was 22 years old when she had 4 girls, 5 years apart. 22 years old and she had 4 kids. They were very young. They were working really hard. I can only imagine that when they found out, again, this is what came through for me. And I may have a follow-up. I thought about actually calling them today because I know I could have this conversation with them. But I can only imagine finding out that you're pregnant with your 4th baby and how the hell are we going to do this? How the hell are we going to support another baby? So not intentionally making me feel like I was a burden in the womb, but energy is real and energy is transferred. And so I was like, have I felt like a burden before I even was born? Am I carrying this from that? And now I have spent my entire life trying to prove my worthiness, trying not to be a burden. Is that why I've always tried to be the easy kid, the funny kid, the whatever? Not ask for things so I wasn't the burden, because I knew from the moment they found out that this was going to be hard and this was going to be a financial burden. This was going to be just a burden in their everyday lives to have to take care of another baby. I can only imagine. And again, I may ask those questions and find out. I don't know if I need to, because again, I know as a parent, even having one baby, I was like, oh, be really careful of your energy, because that is transferred the same way. And I mentioned this in that episode about like being pregnant. If you have a miscarriage, well, that next time that you are pregnant, you want to be careful you're not bringing fear and worry into that. And how can you not? But we have to be so clear on our energy and love that baby and all the good and positive energy, so that we're not transferring that energy onto this now baby who is going to be born with that worry, with that anxiousness, with that fear, or maybe even that fear of abandonment because you wouldn't attach to the baby because you were scared you were going to lose it. Whereas I came in feeling like a burden, and now I'm a girl. So this was the story I also created. I don't remember ever hearing the message from my dad that he wished I were a boy. I certainly heard a lot of people throughout my entire life talk about, oh, what's it like to have 4 girls? Just like when I heard everyone commenting about my sister that was above me that was so tall and skinny, well, that must mean that you're fat and lazy. No one said that to me, but that's what my ego told me. So when people commented about 4 girls, 4 girls, 4 girls, no boys, I was the last shot for a boy. I carried that with me for a very long time. Again, my dad never indicated that. He had almost this badge of honor that he had 4 girls. But I would go hunting. I was the tomboy. I tried to do all of those boy things because I carried this guilt that I was the last shot for a boy. And I joked about it, but I'm feeling now that that was a real thing, that I carried that with me truly. And I think that's why I have so many guy friends and I get along with them, is because I embraced that energy, because I felt that. I wanted to embody that for my dad, to be that. And so today it hit me, I was like, oh my gosh, have I spent my entire life trying to feel worthy? But then it hit me just as quickly. I'm in the shower now, and now I'm crying. This is this morning. This is in a span of 20 minutes. This is how fast this stuff comes when you ask. I asked very clearly, am I supposed to know? And it was like, yes, here you go. Boom. Here are the downloads. But then I heard, you are only a burden for those who aren't ready for you. Your parents maybe weren't ready for you, so it might have felt like a burden. The people who aren't ready to look at their own stuff, to heal their own stuff, to acknowledge their childhood wounds, yeah, you're going to feel like a burden to them because you're going to put this on them and make them have to look at it, or at least have to acknowledge it. So you are a burden for the people who aren't ready for you. You are not a burden for those who are. You are a gift to the people who are ready for you. You are a gift to people who are ready to validate their stories. You are a gift to people who want to acknowledge their inner child. You are a gift to people who want to see this differently, who want to heal. You are a gift for those people. You are a burden for those who refuse to look at their own stuff, who want to keep projecting their pain and their hurt and their wounds onto other people and never take responsibility for their life. You are a burden to them because your light casts a shadow on what they don't want to see yet. And then I was like, whoa. And this brings me back to one of the very first conversations I had with him about podcast Tami, and that I can speak so clearly and so passionately on here. But then when I'm in a one-on-one, all of a sudden I shrink. And he's like, what is up with that? And I'm like, well, when I'm doing the podcast, there's no one on the other side. I'm not reading your guys' energy. I'm not worried about what you're thinking and feeling. But when I'm one-on-one, you're right there and I can see you and I'm analyzing your energy and your tone and your facial expressions. And so I'm in my head now deciding what I need to say, how I need to say it, what's going to make you happy, what's not, so that's why in the moment present with someone, I can show up very different. And for someone to actually see it and to acknowledge it and to call me out on it was like, oh. But then that same download came through. Is I'm not like that with people who are ready to hear me. I have dimmed my light. I have silenced my voice to those who aren't ready to hear me. I have been trying to talk to people who are not ready to hear my message. People that are not ready to heal. Yeah, they're not going to hear you, Tami. But I intuitively dial it down around those people. I energetically know. And this was so clear to me a few years ago. I might have mentioned this on an episode, that there was, a group of friends and we would always go over to their house for parties and stuff like that. And there was a certain point in my healing journey where that no longer felt good. And I couldn't speak. I would fumble on my words. People like, hey, how's it going? How's work or whatever? And I could not speak clearly. I had this weird filter, or all of a sudden I was like combining words. I'm like, what are you doing, Tami? But yeah, how could I sit down with my friend Brittany, who was on the episode a couple weeks ago, or my friend Erica, and we can just say the most profound things and have the most beautiful conversations? I'm like, wait a second, this is not that I just can't communicate and that I can't speak. It's apparently around certain people. It's around certain energy. And that was when it hit me as well. Is I was speaking to people that were not ready to hear me, that were not ready to listen. And that is where you have to use discernment, right? Where are you going to put your energy? Who are you going to speak to? And who is going to see me and the work that I do as a gift versus being a burden? I'm not spending any energy anymore on people who are going to feel like just my existence alone, my presence alone is a burden, when there are plenty of people who see it as a gift. And that is how I have felt in the presence of this person. Because I know very clearly why this person was in my life. Was to call out my ego, was to be this grounded energy for when I would get caught in it, and to be that safe space, that rock, to be there for me when I came back too. Because he witnessed that as well, where I would go like, oh, I'm gone, I'm on ego train. And then I could come back, and then I could have that grounded moment in presence where I could talk it through and be like, hey, what just happened? Where did you go? Like, well, I dissociated and I went down misery lane and drummed up all the worst case scenarios, and now I'm back. Where I realized that none of that is true. But to have someone there to be like, no, that is not what just happened. That is not the reality. Your ego created this story, and I could see it like, oh, wow. So I could see very clearly, and also to be able to be in my feminine, to be able to find my voice in those moments. It was very, very, very clear to me why this person came into my life. And I kept asking, I'm like, why am I in his? And then all of this inner child stuff came. But if I would have let my ego get in the way and be like, well, I don't know if he wants to hear that, or he's going to think you're weird if you share this little download or whatever, I would have completely denied him of that experience. But I had to listen to my intuition. Actually, I feel like his inner child was like, Tami, I need you here. Tami, aisle 1. You are being called to summon this man's inner child who has been silenced for 40 years. You are in this person's life for that. And now, after that moment, I was Tuesday morning so clear that that is my role in people's lives. You can see it as a burden or you can see it as a gift. But if I am in your life somehow, you get to choose how you want to see that, how you see my presence, how you see my energy, and me talking about childhood wounds, me talking about your inner child. Does it feel like a burden, or does it feel like a possible gift if you were to open it? Because that's what it was. And I witnessed that. I saw the gift that this man received from being connected to his inner child after all these years. Think about that reunion. You see that stuff on TV sometimes when, a parent and a child or a sibling, and they've been separated for all this time, and that reunion, how moving that is. I witnessed that between a grown man and his inner child. And in that moment, that's where I was like, you have to get out there and do this. And that's what he said too. He's like, you have to keep doing this work. You have to get out there. You have to share this message. You can't quit. More people need to experience what I just experienced. 3 months ago, I didn't even know I had an inner child. You have to keep doing this work. And yes, some people are going to see it as a burden, but so many other people are going to see it as a gift. And after that whole thing happened this morning, again, that trigger happened for me. And I also shared that maybe it was also for him, and that maybe your inner child didn't feel seen in that moment because I didn't notice. I didn't say something right away about the trimmed beard. And I can honor that. I can respect that. I can totally understand that your inner child maybe didn't feel seen in that moment, and I can have love and compassion for that. And in some cases, that might not have had anything to do with me, but obviously it triggered me, so there was something in that for me. And because I was willing to go there and I was willing to say, tell me where this is coming from. Help me. Boom, download, epiphany, healing. Holy crap. And I feel like I was able to release that feeling like a burden, because now I understand it, that I am not a burden for those who are ready for this message. And for those who see me that way, who see this message as that, I will bless and release. You're not ready, and that's okay. it might not be for you in this lifetime, but there are a lot of people that it is, and I need to reach them. And so I would kindly ask you to then step aside, even though your inner child's probably going to be like, what are you doing? Listen to her, follow her. But if it's not your time in this lifetime or now, that's okay. But I have to keep on this mission for those who are ready, for those who are ready to hear me, to see me. And I can't keep dimming my light, silencing my voice for those who don't see it that way, for those who aren't ready, because I'm doing a disservice to those who are. And I will no longer do that. So, yeah, it's been, like I said, it's been a week. It's been a couple months of like, whoa. But it's been really cool because, man, in the last 3 months has been, like I said, accelerated healing. I even said to this person, like, if there was like a graduation, you just went through the fast track program and you graduated. Congratulations, you and your inner child are reunited. Never abandon him again. And I know his inner child would be like, oh, I know he's not. No way. No way. So I hope that you found something in that. And if nothing else, to know that your inner child needs you more than anything in those hard moments, and that you have God and the universe, source, whatever you connect with in those moments where you don't know the answer, you don't know where to turn, and that you are not alone. But you have to remember to ask. And the way they just orchestrate everything that you need in that moment, it's wild. It's wild, but it's so beautiful. So that's what I got for you today. Thank you for going on this roller coaster ride with me. Believe it or not, halfway in there, I had to pause and go get the kids off the bus. And in the meantime, put out a massive Hulk tantrum with Legos where I actually started crying. So I'm like, I'm back and I've been triggered a couple times since, and we are all emotionally regulated now. It's all good, but that's part of this, right? So we'll see if you can spot where I had to come back. But I also want to remind everyone about the 4-week program that Christy and I are doing called Roots and Wings, which is all about tapping into your inner child. And again, I love that I get to partner with someone like her who has 30 years experience in the therapy counseling world with couples, and knowing that I get to bring my inner child wisdom and passion into this program really, really excites me. And so I will put the links for that program. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go back and listen to last week's episode where we dive into that a little bit more. But we're also talking a lot more about the couple dynamics, which was so relevant for what just happened. Because again, you can see how all of this was filtering into our relationship. And if we wouldn't have dealt with our inner child stuff, both of us would have been long gone. For sure. Would have been like, this is too hard. Peace out. I'm done. And I had said many times, like, I understand why people stay single. It was way easier just being by myself and only having to deal with my energy and my ego and my inner child. Bringing someone else into the mix, I was like, but then you also miss out on so many other things. And so it's worth doing the work. But her episode was so timely into what just happened. And so I definitely encourage you to go back and watch that. And then also right before I hit record on today's episode, I had a coaching call with Jamie from the Believe crew, and they are going to be official sponsors of the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing podcast. And really part of working with her is always seeing this bigger vision and talking about where I want to see this podcast go. And it is about having real time conversations so that you guys can witness the aha moments and connecting those dots that people have in real time. And so I'm really excited for them to be a part of this. So if you are in that realm where you're dreaming big, but you're finding yourself coming up on blocks and stumbling and knowing that there's things coming up for you, absolutely check out Believe Crew, because that is a one-stop shop in a totally different way where you're going to get all of the things that you need to move along this journey, because it's one of those things like easier said than done. Yeah. But when you're dealing with childhood trauma, limiting beliefs, conditioning, stored trauma, stored emotions. That's why so many of us stay stuck. That's why we haven't done the thing that's been on our heart for our years and years and years. And none of us want to get to the end of our days with regret of the things that we didn't do. And so I'm super excited to be partnering up with them, to have them sponsoring the podcast, because they have helped me so much. So on that note, I will wrap this up and I will see you all back next week. We have some really cool guests coming up for you. And then after that, because I already have them lined up, I think then we'll switching some gears. And so if you are that person, you're like, you know what, Tami, I'm feeling brave. I'm feeling bold. I'll hop on here and do a one-on-one, basically one-on-one coaching session with you, but on the podcast. Help me through this block. Help me understand these childhood wounds. Help me understand my relationship with my spouse or my parents or my kids. Let's talk about it right here, right now. If that's you, let me know and we can get real together. All right. Awesome. So we will see you back next week. And you guys, I know you're still waiting for that announcement. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Anyway, until next week, thank you so much for being here with me on this episode. Thank you for holding space for me through all my feels, all my emotions, and my experience. And hopefully you got a little nugget, something out of that story, out of this episode. And if you did, let me know. I would love to hear that from you. Please don't forget to like this episode, to comment, subscribe, to download, all of those things, because that helps get this message out, and share it. Share it with someone that this could relate to. Share it with your spouse, share it with your partner, share it with your friends, and be like, whoa, this is kind of the behind the scenes stuff that's happening that we're all living, but no one's talking about. And so I'm putting my stuff out there in hopes that it helps some other people. So as always, thank you for being with me, exchanging that energy. I appreciate it more than you know. Until next week, bye.